My name is Thomas Lovehart, and I'm running for Utah House District 71 against the Republican incumbent Rex Shipp. And I want to take a few minutes to talk about climate change. And no, I'm not a climate change denier, and I don't think that many Utah conservatives are either. Utahns don't need a lecture to understand climate change because we see it with our own eyes. Winters are becoming shorter and hotter and drier. The snowpack is shrinking, reservoirs are draining, aquifers are depleting, and the Great Salt Lake is now at historic lows. And Republicans in the legislature, their only plan is to cut the lake in half and start draining it. And Republicans in the legislature, frankly, have no plan to address climate change, at least not sufficiently. Utah now invests more in cloud seeding technology than any other state in the union because even a conservative legislature understands that we cannot afford to do nothing while our water disappears. Too much of Utah's economy, agriculture, skiing, tourism, construction, public health, depends on a healthy and reliable snowpack, clean air and water, and a healthy Salt Lake. Furthermore, this is not a radical leftist idea. 2/3 of Utahns agree that climate change is real, that it's affecting our state, and that it is caused by humans. Yet, even as conservative and liberal Utah voters recognize the urgency and the need to address climate change, as usual, our Republican-controlled legislature refuses to listen and refuses to act. Instead, the legislature continues to cater to corporate interests, giving huge subsidies to oil, gas, and coal, while growing increasingly hostile to renewable energy projects. And this is not sensible policy. Frankly, this is a legislature who has been bought by corporate interests, who is disguising their selling out Utah voters as a culture war priority or culture war symbolic politics. The truth is that solar is already cheaper per watt than any other energy source. And when you take away subsidies from oil and gas and coal, that truth becomes ever more apparent. New taxes, strict incentives, and regulatory barriers continue to undermine the deployment of large-scale renewable energy in the state, and this doesn't serve anyone except for oil and gas conglomerates. We're also contending with a legislature that is very eager to establish massive AI data centers in very water-scarce areas like Milford County, and they're doing that. And those data centers are going to use so much water and use so much energy, and unfortunately, the plan is that all that energy use is going to come from burning natural gas or burning coal. And not only are utilities going to shoot through the roof for people living in areas like Milford County, but we're going to see the air become poisoned and the wilderness be destroyed by these projects. We do need more energy production. And our legislature says that all the time. We need more energy production in Utah as it grows, as we start to adapt to the AI economy. But there is no reason that Utah legislators should be rigging the free market to subsidize oil and coal at the expense of sustainable renewable energy projects in our state. It doesn't serve anyone. In fact, Utahns deserve a lot better. The idea that bold climate action is going to hurt our economy or burden taxpayers is a lie. I've already said that solar is the cheapest form of energy available, but done right, accelerating renewable energy projects, especially community-owned cooperative projects, creates new jobs and lowers utility bills. This is fiscal responsibility and the fiscal conservatism that Republicans talk about. Any climate policy in Utah also has to contend with the reality that we don't have the water that we need. And we have a bunch of legislators who have deep financial ties to the real estate and development industry who, despite what they claim about, being anti-development, being anti-Californians moving into the state, they want massive, continuous development and growth and construction in the state because it benefits them. And I'm not necessarily against responsible and connected development projects that make cities better, but they don't have a plan for how they're going to get the water that they need for those new people. And so instead, they're kicking the can down to the next generation, and guess what? That is our generation. $300 million water pipelines to steal water from another county that is also likely going to experience the same explosive growth as Cedar City is not responsible or beneficial policy. In fact, it screws generations of taxpayers. The best water policy for Utah is conservation. And how do we encourage conservation? First of all, we could fix our broken use it or lose it water policy, which tells farmers that if you don't use this water this year, then next year you're not entitled to that water anymore. So not only do we have farmers growing extremely water intensive crops so that they can not lose their water rights, but we also have farmers that are not growing anything, just wasting water, just pouring it onto their field, growing no crops so that they can maintain their water rights for down the line when they do want to grow crops again. That is extremely irresponsible, but we force these farmers into this position. And currently, as it stands, 70 to 80% of the water that we use in the state of Utah goes to alfalfa farm and agriculture. And I love farmers, but frankly, this is just not a crop that we should be growing, this super water intensive crop in a desert. But big surprise, Utah legislators are also alfalfa farmers. Our own governor, Spencer Cox, has an alfalfa farm. So we can expect more bad water policy, more shrinking lakes, more shrinking aquifers and draining reservoirs, as long as our legislators do not have the best interests of the people that they govern in their minds. So if you're tired of a legislature that constantly seeks to sell off our public lands and to develop them for oil and gas and to waste water on our outdated, archaic water policy, seek to develop as much of Utah as possible with no plan on how to do that sustainably, then consider electing someone to office who has nothing to gain from protecting a broken system and everything to gain from fixing it. You can learn all about what I stand for at voteloveheart.com. And please, if you can, consider donating to my campaign. I know that money is tight for everyone in the state, and that's one of the things that I'm deeply concerned about. But this is a grassroots campaign. I don't come from money. I don't have thousands of dollars sitting around in my bank account. So if you want to see real progressive change in Utah, then no amount is too little, and I'll be grateful. Thank you.